In this video, we're going to look at circles, and we're going to look at some of the terms that are important when we study circles. We're going to look at some formulas that are important, and then we're going to look at some examples that show us how to use those formulas. To begin with, the definition of a circle is that it is all the points that are equidistant from a point that is called the center. And that orange dot there in the middle is called the center. You have to use your imagination a little to pretend that my circle is perfect, because that's about the best we can do with drawing in this format. At any rate, we've got the center, that orange dot right there in the middle, and then a very important term is going to be from that center to the circle is called the radius. Also, another important term is if we go through the center all the way across, that is the diameter. And it's pretty easy to tell by looking at that picture there that if I go all the way across, that's the same as doing the radius and the radius again. The radius and the radius again gives me the diameter. So one of the things that's always going to be true is that the diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. That's going to be true in all cases. Another word that's going to be really important for us is if I start at a certain point and I go all the way around the circle, that is called the circumference. We wouldn't refer to the perimeter of a circle, we would refer to the circumference as the distance all the way around. Those are some very important terms that we'll need to be really comfortable with as we study circles: the radius, the diameter, and the circumference. There's a number that you may already be familiar with that is really important when we deal with circles. For any circle, doesn't matter how big or small, if you take the circumference, the distance around the circle, and the diameter, the distance all the way across going through the center, and you make a ratio out of those. You make a ratio of C divided by D. The circumference divided by the diameter of any circle, doesn't matter what it is, you get the number 3.1415926, and it keeps going on and on and on and on forever. That number you may know as the Greek letter pi. What that is the ancient Greeks kind of went, hey, every circle we've got, if we do the circumference divided by the diameter, we get the same thing. No matter how big or small the circle, this always happens. This number is very important. Let's give it a name. And they named it pi. And that number pi is going to be really important for us in a couple of formulas that we're going to look at and then use. The first formula is going to come straight from what we just looked at, that circumference divided by diameter equals pi. We'll do a tiny little bit of algebra here, and we'll multiply both sides by the diameter. On the left-hand side, those cancel, and what we end up with is that circumference equals pi times diameter. This formula here gives us the circumference of a circle if we know the diameter. Also, if we know the circumference, we could find the diameter. Also, since we know that the diameter is the same as 2 times the radius, we could say that the circumference is pi times 2 times the radius. Or more commonly, what you'll see for that one is the circumference is 2 times pi times r. These two formulas can be used to find the circumference. Circumference is pi times d. Circumference is 2 times pi times r. Let's look at an example that uses this. If a circle has a radius of 11 centimeters, what is the circumference of the circle? It's not necessary here, but you may want to think, well, if I draw a picture, this may help me. I know that normally helps. So I've got a radius of 11 centimeters. What I'm trying to find is the circumference, which is all the way around the circle. That's what I'm trying to find. Okay, well, I'm going to compare the radius with the circumference. I have a formula that'll do that for me. It's that the circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius. Now pi, I saw it was 3.1415926. It keeps going and going and going. I'm not sure what to use there. What we're going to do is we're going to use 3.14 for pi. So when I plug into my formula, I'm going to have the circumference equals 2 times 3.14 times the radius, which was 11. And we just need to multiply all of those together, and we wind up with a circumference of 69.08 centimeters. If you're thinking, well, what about that c equals pi d thing? What if I want to use that? What if I want to say the circumference is pi times the diameter? Okay, well, let's see if we can use that here. The circumference would be 3.14 times the diameter. Well, if the radius is 11, then the diameter is 22. And when we multiply 3.14 times 22, sure enough, we get that same 69. Let me draw that a little better in there. That same 69.08 centimeters. Let's look at another one that's a little bit different. A circle has a circumference of 40 millimeters. What is the diameter? Again, you don't have to draw a picture, but it kind of helps me. So here I've got a circle, and I'm told that the circumference is 40 millimeters, and what I'm trying to find is the diameter. Okay, so I'm comparing circumference with diameter. So the formula I want to use is c equals pi times d. And we're going to have pi as 3.14. And I need to find the diameter. That's the thing I don't know. Oh yeah, I was given the circumference, so I can plug that in. The circumference here was 40. Now I've got to do a little algebra to get that d by itself. I need to divide this side by 3.14 so that those cancel, leaving the d. And if I divide the right-hand side by 3.14, I need to divide the left-hand side by 3.14. And when I do that, I get that 12.74 millimeters is equal to my diameter. Let's look at one more problem with one formula that we haven't seen yet. The circumference is kind of like the perimeter of a circle, and we haven't talked about the area at all. How much space does this circle cover? Our formula for the area of a circle is going to be pi times the radius squared. Be careful with your order of operations there. We're going to square first and then multiply by pi. So let's look at an example of this type. We're told that a circle has a diameter of 16 inches. What is the area? Now, one thing we've got to be really careful about here is our formula for area involves the radius. So the first thing we need to do before we do anything else is, if the diameter is 16, then the radius is going to be half of that. Then we'll use our formula to find the area. So the area of our circle is going to be pi times the radius squared. Remember, order of operations is really important here. Before we do any multiplying by this 3.14, we need to square first. Exponents are going to go before multiplication. And then we're going to have 3.14 times 64, which is 200.96. And the radius was in inches, so our area is going to be in square inches. And so the area of that circle is 200.96 square inches.